During the Second World War, there was a huge amount of espionage used by different countries to try and get the upper hand on their enemies. Spies would reveal the secrets and planning of military campaigns and of operations that would take place, and they had an incredibly important part of the conflict. With spies, when they were captured, they were usually treated terribly and executed after they endured a rough ordeal of beatings and torture. Spies were incredibly dangerous, and today we look at one of the most remarkable of the Second World War. Noor Inayat Khan, codenamed Madeline, was the first female wireless operator sent behind enemy lines into Nazi-occupied France to help the French resistance. However, she was executed and tortured in horrific fashion. So join us today as we look at the horrific execution of Noor Inayat Khan, the British spy of Dachau. And remember, as always, to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Noor Inayat Khan was born in Moscow on the 1st of January 1914. Her father was an Indian Muslim, and they were a rather noble family. Her father was a pioneer of Sufism in the West, an expression of the Islamic faith. She did have a rich family on her father's side, with there being many skilled musicians there. Her mother was American, who met her father whilst he was travelling. As the First World War broke out in 1914, the family left Russia to head for London, and she went to a nursery in an affluent part of London called Bloomsbury, before the family moved to France when she was just 6. The family were involved in the Sufi movement and the Sufi order, and they were given a house near to Paris through this. Noor was a shy young girl, and after her father's death, she cared for her mother and her siblings, despite only being just 13 at the time. She then studied child psychology and music in Paris, and began to work as a writer, working on poetry and children's books in French and English. As the Second World War broke out, it was likely that Hitler would turn his attention to France as he sought to take the nation incredibly quickly. On the 3rd of September 1939, France declared war on Germany after the Nazi invasion of Poland, and there had been hostility between the two countries for decades following the end of the First World War and the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. The invasion of France began on the 10th of May 1940 and lasted 6 weeks, which resulted in France being placed under German occupation. Hitler famously was pictured strolling through Paris in front of the Eiffel Tower with his inner circle. Shortly before the invasion, Noor and her family had returned to England, fleeing to Bordeaux before entering England from Cornwall on the 22nd of June 1940. Now, Noor and her family were pacifists, however she and her brother wished to take the fight to the Nazis in some way. They wished to make India proud, and they hoped some Indians would get military awards during the conflict, and they wished to help the Allies against the Germans, and therefore bring together the English and the Indians. For this, she joined the Women's Auxiliary Air Force and was trained as a wireless operator. However, it was clear that she was bound for a career in a slightly different field. Noor was fluent in a number of languages, and because of this she seemed like the perfect recruit for SOE, Special Operations Executive, a group of spies who would work for the British behind enemy lines. They conducted sabotage operations and worked closely with the resistance to bring about the downfall of the enemy. Khan found her work boring inside of the Air Force and was recruited to join the French section of SOE, and she began to undergo special training as a wireless operator working in occupied land. She became the first woman to be sent as a radio operator into occupied lands, as women were only sent to work as couriers. She began to build upon her training and received only the best training in how to operate in a city, transmitting messages back without being detected. She received a training mission which aimed to replicate a Gestapo interrogation, which aimed to show what she might face if she was captured. Agents were put through their paces, and it was noted that Khan seemed terrified that she nearly lost her voice. Her final report stated that she was not overburdened with brains but worked hard, and that she had an unstable and temperamental personality, and she was doubted whether she was really suited. However, the head of her section said it was nonsense, and he backed her. She was questioned about her ability in secret operations, and her quiet and gentle personality worried SOE trainers. She was also given reports of her athleticism, which were poor, and she was noted for being scared of weapons. However, she was adept and skilled as a wireless operator and signaller, and eventually was selected to go on mission. Her mission would be very dangerous. Like we said, she became the first female wireless operator to go behind enemy lines, and her job was to link the field with London, receiving and transmitting messages about sabotage jobs and conveying messages as to weapons needed for the French resistance. She was taken under her wing by Vera Atkins, the intelligence officer of F Section, who backed her and believed she could succeed. Noor, during a meeting with Atkins, was upset that her suitability was questioned, and she had no doubts, and she wanted to enter the field. Vera Atkins took a personal approach with her officers, personally seeing them all off. After gaining assurances about Khan's suitability, she accompanied her to the airfield. Khan was then taken by Western Lysander into France, and she landed in a field near to Angers, and was met with a reception committee of other SOE agents. She then, after landing, made her way to Paris to link up with members of the French resistance and other SOE agents. She became known as codename Madeleine, and inside of France she worked well as her fluency in the language made her a good candidate to work inside of the Nazi-occupied territory. She had been flown over on the 16th of June 1943, and at this time in the Second World War, the Germans still had the upper hand. She belonged to the Prosper network that had been established. However, within 10 days of her landing in France, the network of spies began to be arrested and rounded up. Something had gone terribly wrong, but she remained in contact with Britain and was told she would be flown home. Noor said that she was the only radio operator in Paris and believed she could continue in the shadows, but it wasn't long before things went wrong. Noor Inayat Khan was eventually turned over to the Germans. It's believed this was either by Henry Dericourt, a prominent SOE French agent, or another. It's been suspected that Dericourt was in fact a double agent working for the Nazi intelligence service, the SD. It's also been rumoured that another agent was paid 100,000 francs for information that led to the capture of SOE agents. Khan managed to last in France for a few months before on the 13th of October 1943 received. More agents of F Section were captured and arrested, and many had learned about Noor's capture. They managed to warn Britain of any transmissions coming from codename Madeleine and to ignore these, and this message did get back. On the 25th of November 1943, Noor managed, along with fellow SOE agents and local resistance leaders, to escape the SD headquarters during an air raid. However, after being caught, she was then taken to Germany and was considered a flight risk, and was imprisoned in complete solitary confinement. She was shackled at her hands and feet for 10 months straight, as she was considered to have been very dangerous. Throughout her imprisonment, she continued to give up no information at all, and she found it very tough. Other prisoners noted how each evening she would be crying in her cell loudly. Because of her escape attempts, and as the Second World War was turning against the Germans, she was kept inside of Germany for months. By September 1944, she had been taken to Dachau Concentration Camp, along with other SOE female agents. Dachau was a camp where 188,000 people passed through the gates of the concentration camp, and over 40,000 prisoners were killed. When the camp was liberated by the Allies, dozens of thousands were sick at the time. At Dachau, prisoners lived in constant fear, as there was a sadistic culture of torture used at the camp. At times, many feared the standing cells and flogging, but also hangings in which prisoners were suspended for hours at times. It was also a site of medical experimentation, but was here where Noor Inayat Khan was executed. The clearest account of what happened at her execution comes from Gestapo accounts that were told by members of the secret police to the US after the war. One investigator was told by another Gestapo agent about the execution of Noor Inayat Khan and 3 fellow SOE agents. He said, "The 4 prisoners had come from the barrack in the camp, where they had spent the night, into the yard where the shooting was to take place. Here, the executioner announced a death sentence to them. Only the lager commandant and the 2 SS men were present. The German-speaking Englishwoman, the major, notified her companion about the death sentence. All 4 of the prisoners had grown very pale and wept. The major asked if they could protest against the death sentence. The commandant declared that nobody could protest against the sentence. The major then requested to see a priest. The camp commandant denied the major's request on the grounds that there was no priest inside of the camp. Now the 4 prisoners were ordered to kneel, with their heads facing a small mound of earth, before they were killed by 2 SS men, one after another, by a shot through the back of the neck. During the shooting, the 2 Englishwomen held hands, and the 2 Frenchwomen did the same. For 3 of the prisoners, the first shot caused their death, but for the German-speaking Englishwoman, a second shot needed to be fired because she still showed signs of life after the first shot was fired. After the shooting of these prisoners, the Lager commandant said to the two SS men that he took a personal interest in the jewellery of the women, and he said that these should be taken into his office. Further accounts from other prisoners state how Noor was beaten brutally by an SS officer before she was taken out and shot from behind. Her last words allegedly were liberty, and in some payback the man who beat her was executed after the war for his involvement in executions. The story of Noor Khan is one of a brave lady who wished to fight for the Allies against the Germans. She was a pioneer, being the first female radio operator to work for SOE behind enemy lines. Her capture was one which is still wrapped in mystery and debate as to who turned her over and betrayed her. However, what cannot be disputed is what happened inside of Dachau, with Khan being executed and shot dead. She was awarded the George Cross in 1949 and has been commemorated in many different ways over the past decades. Once again, thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.